Good afternoon, everybody, Raven fans, Oriole fans. Thank you for joining us here for the Ravori Sports Podcast interview series for fans like me. Like and subscribe to all of our social media content. Check it out, July 13th, our instant reaction for the Marlins and the Orioles game that day. And we were doing our MLB draft coverage. So we're going to go over the first couple picks of the draft all the way up until the Orioles pick as well. Genesis Notary Services, if you know, you know. From Winchester, Virginia area, definitely check it out. We had a couple notary appointments. We thank you very much for all of you that have participated in that. And now we have the unbiased journalist, the guy that finishes all of the open mics at the Driving to the Top Productions here. The guy, I think this is you and Dylan, I think, are the real grinders of the group, man. Like, you guys are always working. So we got Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist. Be ready for anything, Raven fans, Oriole fans. How are we doing, Jamie, here today? Thank you, sir.
No problem, Raph. I'm doing great. I got the NHL draft on my TV muted, of course, so that doesn't take the full attention away from this, and I'm flipping back that between the Yankees game and the Sabres should be, or they just had the Bruins picking and the Sabres are picking at 9. So we're gonna see if they're gonna actually make the pick there or trade it, because I think Kevin Adams said he had a lot of calls wanting to move that pick. So we'll see what they do when they get to 9.
They'll never have a goalie as good as Dominic Hasek, whoever it is. I know that.
We had Ryan Miller.
Ryan Miller was really good. I think he was the next closest. But, I mean, Dominic Hasek was on his own.
There is nobody like the Dominator. You kidding me?
Ryan Miller was really good for several years.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's also the thing, though, to say that, like, you'll never have a goalie as good as Dominic Hasek, though. Rap, it's also because goalies are way more, they're different because the way they play the game now. Like, your goalies are more like lacrosse goalies now. You're 6'5" that take up a lot of net. They're not your smaller goalies anymore.
Like, Hasek was like Plastic Man. Everything would get around those smaller, quicker guys and things like that. Ryan Miller was really good for a number of years, but when you get in those NHL playoffs, this is why you see so many upsets in hockey playoffs and like NBA, that you get that goalie that gets hot, it's over. You can't get anything going. All right, so again, ready for anything. We weren't even going to talk hockey, right? Like what we talked about at pre-show. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills here, right? So I've been saying that the Bills and the Ravens, I think, are the two teams that are going to meet in the AFC Championship here, have a good opportunity. Both teams, I think, have had great off seasons. I think both teams are benefiting from the Kansas City Chiefs, not being maybe as good. Where do you sit with what the Bills have done in the off season?
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. But the one thing I think the Bills have done a good job with, and even though, like I said, 2 of these guys are suspended because of performance-enhancing drugs, but they had a plan after they lost to Kansas City. They said, look, our defense underachieved. We weren't really that big. We had a lot of smaller, athletic guys who could rush the pass, but we needed to get bigger and stronger in the trenches. And you saw in the draft, 7 of their 9 picks or whatever were on the defense. So, and that's what they made it a priority to get nastier and tougher on defense. They never really touched the offense because they feel like they like I said, Josh Allen did a lot. He kind of had to play Dan Marino last year. He had to do a lot with very little, and that's what he did.
I think the offense kind of developed a little bit last year. I think the wide receiver, Khalil, I think really developed unexpectedly. They went out and got Jordan Palmer. I think the line, was better than they thought. What's going on with James Cook, though? The one name I didn't mention, holding out, looking for a bigger deal. If you want to protect Josh Allen, you're going to need that run game. What's going on with Cook as far as him in his situation right now?
Well, I'll tell you the one positive thing is, though, he did end up participating in all the mini camps, and he did not hold out for any mini camp practice. He attended that and was a full participant. So I think he's looking at it now. He's starting to realize he'll come to the realization. I think I'll just play on my rookie year, and then we could talk about it after the year's over. I think he's like, I just want to win and do anything for this team, and play on my last year of the rookie deal. That's why I think he did that.
What's the holdup? Why won't the Bills extend him? I would think that this is a guy that's a very important focal point for you. Why would you take the chance of not extending him?
A couple reasons. Look at every team. Look at what is every team, with the exception of Derrick Henry. What do they think of the running backs anymore? They think except for Saquon Barkley, it's kind of basically been a dime a dozen position. And I know he's been great, but he's got two problems though. They always take him out on he doesn't pass block very well, which is why they don't take him out. And he's asking for $15 million, but I don't think you should pay a guy that only plays half the snaps and gets taken out and doesn't pass block that type of money. I think you extend him, and I don't think you give him $15 million, especially when he doesn't play every snap.
This could be risky there, Jamie. I don't know, man. That's you're right about the pass blocking. I think the same thing with the Squealers and Najee Harris. Like, that's why they let him go. He couldn't really pass block at all. So that's more of a thing than what fans know. But I go ahead.
Right, but the difference is James Cook, Najee Harris he was a bowling ball, smash mouth type of running back. James Cook's more of your dynamic speed back. That's the difference.
Give me a name on the Bills that Raven fans or fans of a different team. Give me a name on that team that we need to. Maybe we don't know that, man, he's going to have a great year. Man, do you think that's really going to step up for us or for you guys? Right?
Let me think. I think you have Maxwell Harrison, the rookie corner, I think. Orlando Jackson, their third-round pick from Arkansas.
Maxwell Harrison kind of moved up the boards there kind of late. There early in the process, he was like a third round, but the closer we got to the draft, I kept hearing that name more and more with his great speed. They kind of did some revamping in the secondary. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they don't usually, like I said, they don't usually take corners like him though. But they made it a priority, saying that they want to get better playing man to man, because when McDermott first came there, they were playing zone, but every year they've been wanting to increase their man coverages. And like I said, when you have when you have fast receivers like Tyreek Hill and you have Tyreek Hill and Xavier Worthy, you kind of need fast corners like that to be able to catch up with them.
Joey Bosa is going to join you guys this year. We know the last name. We know the potential. Played so many years in Los Angeles. You haven't sounded that excited about him. Why don't you like Joey Bosa? That addition.
No, it's not. It's not I don't like him. It's I like I said, his injury issues, but I do like it was only a 1-year deal. So they didn't have to bank the bank for him. So I mean, it's a prove it or lose it deal, which I like that they did with him. But I like the NFL's doing that though. I like all these 1-year.
Von Miller's gone, right?
I like everybody getting these 1-year prove it or lose it deals.
Von Miller's gone, right? They don't have him. They got rid. Is that right?
Yeah, but he did say he was willing to come back and sign on a cheaper deal if he later in the season if he felt like he wanted to. Though he was opening to a potential reunion and return.
Right. So definitely this year. The coach, I think, has been in question, right? We kind of have the same thing in Baltimore where you have a defensive guy, a special teams guy, John Harbaugh, and an outstanding quarterback offensively, Lamar Jackson. You kind of have the same thing. Any hot seat maybe for McDermott? How good is he going forward as far as extension and all that and other stuff? What do you think of the head coach?
They already have him extended until 2027. So I mean, look, he's right, but call it what it is. He's the best coach that they've had in franchise history. Now I know, like I said, I know in the NBA, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau.
Right.
But this is the NFL. The NFL, like I said, the players don't entirely run the league like the NBA does. Like coaching, the NFL actually does think coaching matters a little bit more than the NBA does. So,
but you said the greatest coach in Bills history, so better than Marv Levy, who led you to all those Super Bowls as well.
Well. Yeah, because here's the thing that people forget about Levy. He was the thing with Levy, he's in the Hall of Fame and everything. But when they got to the Super Bowl, he never had the team. They were never focused. He never got them game ready. He never got them, prepared to like win that game all 4 years. When they went to the Super Bowl, he just never had the. They just like I said, they would dominate everybody, and they got so good that they didn't think they had to prepare for the Super Bowl, and it bit them in the butt in all 4 years.
I don't think they ever had the better team any of those years, except for maybe the year they came the closest when Norwood missed the field goal.
No,
I don't think they ever had a better team.
Say that. That's funny you say that. That was the only Super Bowl they were the favorite in. The other three, they were underdogs.
That's exactly right. I thought Dallas Dynasty though was kind of it was the same thing in basketball. We talk about the Jordan era, like Reggie Miller, Pat Ewing, and those guys would have titles. Charles Barkley. If it wasn't for Jordan, right? And I think that's what happened to the Bulls. Like, that's what happened to the Bills. They had the Cowboys there and the 49ers really rolling. They never really.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. As good as that no huddle was, like I said, you know how everybody all wanted the tush push,
the K gun,
and everything, and blah, blah, blah. And they said the only way you could figure out is to try to stop it. And, well, like I said, teams figured out you can't really play defense against the no-huddle offense. So what the Super Bowl teams did was they just played time of possession and kept that offense off the field. That's what the Giants did. And that's what really the Redskins and the Cowboys did too.
That's how the Cowboys played anyway. They ran the ball.
They just kept that no-huddle off the field.
Yeah, keep them off the field. We talked about the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history the other night. Jim Kelly or Josh Allen? We talked about the coaches. Where are you at with that, Jim Kelly or Josh Allen?
I think that's I think that's an interesting question. It's hard to compare because
my wife just said it's Jim Kelly. She thinks it's Jim Kelly for the rest.
I say this though because it's a different era. Like I said, Kelly had the K gun, which I don't know if you know now that you can't actually run that offense anymore because if you run a no huddle now, you have to give the defense time to substitute, and they made that a rule because that offense they would snap the ball so quick that defenses, and like I said, Josh Allen's playing in an offensive era where, like I said, he doesn't need that to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like that's so it's a matter of one needed that particular offense so bad, and the other one didn't need that because it's an offensive oriented game now without it.
Which one do you like better? Who do you like better? Forget who you think the best one is. We kind of have the same thing here in Baltimore with Joe Flacco and Lamar. There are some people that always say Joe Flacco was the greatest quarterback to ever play. He won us the Super Bowl. And some still say Lamar. Where do you sit with those two in Buffalo?
See, that's interesting. You say that too because Joe Flacco was obviously just a pocket. Mm-hmm. He was a pocket quarterback. He didn't nearly have the athleticism or the shit or the stuff that Lamar Jackson could do now, obviously. But that's obviously it's two different eras. But I like Josh Allen, and I think the reason why I say that is because he's in an era where, because of the salary cap, he was forced to like still be good, even with a totally different receiving core. Kelly didn't have that opportunity because there was no salary cap. So he was able to keep everybody together. Josh Allen was able to prove he could still do it without keeping everybody together. Kelly never had a chance to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying Jim Kelly there, right? That's
I said Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, okay. All right. So
Kelly wasn't the athlete. He was a good athlete, but he wasn't. He won the I'm gonna hurdle your butt over you, and he would take he could. The one thing him and Allen shares, they both could take hits like no problem.
All right, I hear you. Kelly was a tough guy. There was no question about it. I think that was a mark of a Jim Kelly team. He was his toughness. He was always getting kind of like Joe Burrow is now. That's what I see a lot of when I see Jim Kelly. Joe Burrow is kind of like the same guy. He's always got his helmet turned sideways or something. All right, Yankees this year in the division. I know how you feel about Juan Soto, right? Not being there. You're not a Soto guy at all, right? You're glad that he's gone, and I think that looks like the right decision considering what's going on this year, the way Dominguez has looked and all that. What do you think happens for the Yankees going down the stretch as far as their season has gone? They've been in first place most of the year.
I think this year the one difference is they're going to have to count on their pitching more. And I think that's the difference between the AL and the NL. The AL with Detroit and the Yankees and Cleveland, the way they're going to get through the postseason is pitching, whereas the NL I think is going to have to get through more hitting. But like I said, I feel like the Yankees are more pitching oriented. They're going to have to rely on their pitching more to get them to the postseason than they had to with Juan Soto last year. That's the only difference, because they did upgrade the pitching with Max Fried and everything. But like I said, you take away a player like it like I said, it costs them taking away a player like Soto. But still, I believe that you weren't gonna overpay. You weren't gonna pay a guy 16 years that type of money when he was batting 288 and the league average is only 240 to 245. I think the analytics said don't do that, you know.
All right, so I know Joe isn't here, but what do you think they are, Mets fans in general, are with Soto addition? He was getting booed, right? This is New York. They're not going to go for that. I think the only place tougher to play as far as getting booed, New York, is maybe, in my opinion, Philadelphia. I think they are the worst. Like, they've been great players. How do you think the Mets are feeling about it right now, having Soto?
It's interesting because he's starting to heat up, but I think Pete Alonso and them, I think they got to be thinking he's not really living up to this contract. Like, Alonso's probably thinking I'm making less than this guy, but I feel like it's still my team and I'm still, like, even Francisco Lindor before he struggled, he's like, Alonso's feeling like I'm getting paid less to do more than what Soto's doing. He's probably thinking, what's going on here, you know?
I think Pete Alonso's been the best first baseman in the NL so far. Like, I think without him, they really have been struggling in terms.
Yeah,
of
but like I said, the funny thing is they paid him less for his extension than what they paid Soto, if you can believe that.
I don't think they were even going to extend him. I don't know that they were even going to keep him. I think he stayed a free agent so long. They wound up working out. Obviously, he got the extension, but
I thought they were going to swap. I thought he was going to go to the Yankees and Soto was going to go to the.
So did I.
That's a lot of people thought that, but no, they said we're going to keep him. You know,
Judge now the season he's having. I thought earlier in the year he was the team. Him and Free, like there was nothing else going on. I mean, a lot of guys were struggling. Why do they pitch to Aaron Judge? That seems crazy to me. Why doesn't he get the Barry Bonds treatment? Where the Orioles, I think, walked him 2 different times in a game. Why don't more teams do that? I know you got some other guys having decent seasons. Chisholm has been really good, but to me, it's obvious. Like, you don't want Judge. I'd rather walk him. Where are you at with that?
Well, see, here's the thing. Last year, like, they walked him, but they had Soto. I think they're looking at it like, if we walk him this year, they've got decent players, but they don't have anybody like that can follow up behind them, with the exception of Paul Goldschmidt and things like that. But they're not. Like I said, they're not fearing the lineup as much as they did last year, because when they walked them last year, they feared them because they had Soto. But that's just what I think.
But you're kind of making the point there, right? So you don't have Soto, because when you have Soto there, that makes all the sense. You can't do but so much of that with Soto there. Because Soto's gonna do almost as much damage. Now that he's gone, to me it makes more sense to put him on base and walk him. Right? Why are you not walking him there? Like, I kind of don't understand that.
Well, Michael Kay and Paul O'Neill also said it's analytics and everything. You can only throw so many pitches in a game now that you can't really. It's basically wasting a pitch now because you're only the way they're load managing these starters. That's probably why.
That's a good point. Obviously, they didn't watch the College World Series where those guys were pitching 120, 130 innings.
Right, but that's the modern day. Right, but then guess what happens when they get to the MLB? They don't pitch that much. That's
exactly right.
Now.
Exactly right. And we got Sagano, Tom Sagano, the Orioles pitcher. He's not even. They're concerned now at this point for him. He was in Japan where they use 6-guy rotation. Like. It's stuff like that. It seems like guys are getting hurt more, but pitching less. Tommy John, Corbin Burns just had Tommy John. We're still waiting on Grayson Rodriguez. We're still waiting on I mean, what's going on with Tommy John in baseball? Why are all these guys, if they're pitching less, getting hurt more?
Well, no, load management ever since there was a stat that I think our buddy Jeremy B said. He said ever since load management, Tommy John surgery's actually statistically gone up because of that. But it's also because, like I said, they're coming in there throwing a lot harder. But because like I said, in college, they're letting them throw that much that when they get to the MLB, they're not throwing that much. And like I said, when you throw less like that, it screws up your arm. So used to going for so long that you have it, the arm can't adjust to that when you're only to less pitches in the MLB than more in college.
I totally agree, and that's why I actually like so much the College World Series. It's so old school, right? Guys throw 120 pitches. In the minors, they certainly don't at all. I mean, they don't even let them go 6 and 7 innings like a lot of times. They'll take them out.
Well, no, but here's the thing: a lot of these pitchers no, you know what it is? They're too good for the minors now because it's like why keep putting them in the minors when they're just throwing out? Why keep them in the minors when they're throwing 199 miles an hour? It's like you're wasting them in the minors. It's like they got to be in the MLB already throwing that.
They're rock throwers, right? I hear you. Like we used to think, like I wonder nowadays. You talk about Roger Clemens. Like, would he even be considered like this flamethrower in the current landscape? He was like 94, 95-ish.
Randy Johnson would, though.
What Randy Johnson would? Randy Johnson was at 100. Like, but like a Rocket, who's considered like this hard thrower, I don't know if he ever approached what these guys are currently doing as far as throwing the baseball.
Well, yeah, but think about it. Nolan Ryan was ahead of his time. He was doing that before anybody else was really doing that. And Goose Gossage was ahead of his time. And Justin Verlander, heck, his rookie year in 2006, he was ahead of his time. When he was with Detroit, he was throwing 101, 102. So
I'm glad you went there back in the day. Let's talk about, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? If you were voting.
Yeah, I mean, unpopular opinion, but I think I think you can only, like I said, you can only criticize a guy and put him through hell like that for so long that time goes by and something else catastrophic comes up, or this pops up, that pops up. And it's like, you want baseball to like get out. It seems like nowadays it's all about making up for the olden days. And I think that's what the MLB is trying to do.
I agree. And guys,
mistakes. And I feel like that's what, as much as we don't like Rob Manfred, I think that's what he's trying to do with baseball.
Why don't you like Rob Manfred real quick? Go ahead on.
Well, no, here's the thing. I didn't like him at first, but then when he started, making the game better, putting the pitch clock in, and then, like I said, I think the best thing he's done as commissioner was that, but I don't think anything could top pulling out of ESPN, pulling the baseball deal out of ESPN. I think that was actually great. He looks like a genius now for doing that, actually. If you think about that.
It's not official yet, but I think we're going to get Sunday Night Baseball on NBC next year. So that's what it looks. That's what I keep.
It makes sense. That's where the All-Star game and That's where it used to be in the 70s and the 80s, and the Cal Ripken era was on NBC.
Right, and they are not to go too far into that, but like they already have Sunday Night Football, obviously, and they're going to have basketball on Sunday night next year, I think, too, when they take the NBA. So it makes more sense to fill the rest of that time with baseball.
Well, right, you know why?
Yeah.
Because baseball has more of a boomer audience still, and and a lot of boomers, like I said, not the stereotype, but the older ones, they most of them, like I said, probably don't have access to ESPN, but they have access to NBC because that's a general, station.
Yep.
So I feel like the ratings, it'll be different because it'll be on a station where more people can probably watch it, whereas like more people have access to NBC, whereas very few people don't keep ESPN anymore like they used to.
Right, and those that are not like me, the old heads that are watching it on NBC, they can watch it on Peacock, so you can stream, so you get younger viewers too that don't have cable as well.
That's part of it too. They want to get it to, obviously, because like I said, baseball, they have it on Prime, but look at the NBA. The NBA was the only league that didn't have it on streaming, unlike the other ones, and that's why they made this new media right deal. Same thing with that sport.
Yeah. Real quick with the NBA, and I know you watched the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau. We kind of talked a little bit about it before, but I don't understand why NBA teams and all these things think they're so much smarter than Tom Thibodeau. I've seen him 3 times now take a team that was a bad team into a good team, and it keets getting fired.
But that's the whole NBA's attitude. They think the players should run the league, not the coaches. But he did. There is a flaw though that he was always known for, and this, like I said, this bit him in Chicago too. His problem is, how the NBA is like everything. NBA is another one with load management. He was the complete opposite of that when he was with Chicago, and even with New York. He would play D-Rose and like Joakim Noah, and same thing with the Knicks. He would play these Jalen Brunson, these guys like 40 to 50 minutes a game. That the problem was they never had a bench, and when they got to the playoffs and when they played the Pacers, Rick Carlisle actually plays his bench and everything. And what happens is the Knicks would get so burned out in the regular season that they would just run out of gas because Jalen Brunson and like all these guys. Same thing with D-Rose and Novak Djokovic. He would have his teams run out of gas in the playoffs from his starters playing so much. That's why.
But I hear all that, but that's kind of what I keep hearing. But Thibodeau keeps making the teams better. You mentioned the Bulls. They haven't been nearly as good since he left. The Knicks won 51 games. Nobody thought they would, even when they tried to sabotage them with Bridges trade and all that. So,
right.
Interesting to see. Let's talk about you.
Well, like I said, I think they want a guy that's obviously going to play his bench more, But like I said, if you actually watch that NBA draft, a lot of these teams, like I know, like they were ripping on the Suns for trading Kevin Durant, and like they were saying, "Oh, the Heat should have gotten Kevin Durant." But you know what? The NBA, if you look at the league now, it's like we don't need to go get we can build a core. We don't need to get a Kevin Durant or a who else? A Steph Curry, because those guys, like I said, those guys are passing the time. And look at the Thunder and the Pacers minus SGA and Tyrese Halliburton. Who did they have on their team that was who did they have on their team that was like a big name guy? They didn't really have that, except that's all they had. None of the other guys that weren't like these big name superstars. And I think the Knicks, they're looking at it that way too. Like with this generation now, you don't have to get a Kevin Durant or a Kyrie Irving to build a core or a championship team. Like same thing with the Magic. Look at the Orlando Magic. They did it with a top 5 rookie core with Boncaro and some of their other rookie picks. And like I said, they were 500, but they still made the playoffs and gave Boston a hard time in the first round with no superstars, basically.
I agree with you, and I think Riley was right to pass on Durant in there. I would have did. I agree with that.
No,
let's talk about.
They can build a. They could continue to build with that young core, and they'll be fine. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, but let's talk about you for a second. Let's talk about you. Okay, so you are the unbiased journalist. Where does the name come from?
Well, I think it's kind of I think it's a shot in the arm when it comes to, modern day journalism. You know how like there's a lot of sports news out there. I just think a lot of sports networks, like I just think there's a lot of sports networks who, like I said, they say they're failing balance, but you can tell that their actions speak otherwise. And like I said, I feel like I want to bring the unbiased journalist. I feel like I truly want to bring that to it. Like I said, to a time where you don't see it anymore. Or like I said, back in the day, you actually had fair journalism.
How many have you had classes in school in journalism? Have you? What is?
Yeah,
tell
I
us a little bit about your
I had
training.
journalism classes. See, here's what the funny. I had my major was media communication, and my minor was English. I was gonna do media communication and journalism, but Fisher changed the program where your major had to be your minor had to be different from your major. They did that. They changed the requirements for it. And I couldn't take journalism because it was the same as media communication and minor. You basically took all the same classes for it.
Where Fisher? Is that the college you went to?
St. John Fisher. Fisher's the nickname, yeah.
Where's that?
It's in Pittsford, New York, suburban Rochester. It's a private college.
Yeah, I don't think I've even heard of it.
Well, you know why? Because their athletics are Division III. That's why. Not so much Division III, though. Here's the thing, though. There's a lot of I've seen Division III games, though. There's a lot of good talent in Division III. There's just no platform to talk about it like there is for D1 and D2. You should actually go check a division.
I know my brother played in Division III.
Any people who are listening to this, go actually check a D3 game. It's pretty cool. It's just not covered.
They're better than what you think.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's exactly where you're going with that. Did you play ball in college? Did you?
No, I wasn't. I just left. I was not coordinated when I was little to play sports, but I can lift weights.
Oh, okay. Because I know Dylan does those long runs, like he does those marathon runs, half marathons, and everything like that.
No, I don't have the lung capacity, or I never had the lung capacity or the stamina to do that.
Right.
Or the running, or the speed at all to do that. So
I'm not an athlete either, brother. I'm not. That's why I'm talking sports and not out there on the field. Even when I was younger, I was in the service, but I never did much with sports. As far as on the field and being any good at it, maybe baseball a little bit. I was a pretty good baseball player, like in high school. Where do you want this to go for you, right? Because I kind of talk when I talk to you and Dylan, you guys are the workhorses of this thing, right, man? You guys are always grinding and working and studying, and even now you're watching games and everything. So where do you want your career in this to go, and where do you want this to go as far as that?
Well, let's see. I'm still 28. I graduated college right when the pandemic started, so I had to finish. I had to finish on my own, or I had to finish remotely for that, and I've basically been working remotely since then, and I've been climbing up the ladder. I actually I applied to uh, Fox and Outkick and everything, and I've been really, really close to almost getting into the door for that. But like I said, I'm doing 3 sports writing jobs too. I'm writing for the Stadium Rant, the Forkball.com, and I just got hired by another company, which was cool too. So
I think so. Would you like to be, when you say roles like that, what is it? Are you looking for a writing role or more of an on-camera role? What exactly are
right
you?
now I would say writing, because the writing jobs, like I said, the writing job markets are a little more, I feel like they're more valuable to find right now. But like I said, what if the podcasting market or the broadcasting market comes up again, I'll transfer into broadcasting. But right now I'm doing mostly writing and podcasting. But I feel like I'm ready for the transition when I get another broadcasting job, because I did both of that. Oh, I did all of that at MCC first, Monroe Community College. I went there to save some money first. So I did broadcasting and writing there. And then, like I said, when I transferred to Fisher, I did the exact same thing. And I shadowed the play-by-play announcer for Fisher football and basketball and lacrosse, which is really cool.
If you could do one or the other, so you're going to be, sometimes I've asked this question, if you could have a job working with the Times or the Post or whatever as a sports writer every day, or you could have 300,000 subscribers for your channel, what lane would you rather be in if you could be in either lane? If you could only do one. Who said, I mean, you may do both, but who said if you could only do one?
I actually think broadcasting. See, I like writing and everything, but the thing with writing, though, I feel like it's very time consuming, and writing is more just taking the time to do it. But I'm a natural talker. I talk my head off more than I write. That's why I think I say broadcasting. But
I don't see like you going on First Take. I see you all the time. You could go on First Take, and I do not see a Skip Bayless or a Shannon Sharp or a Stephen A. Smith arguing you. Like, you don't even let it happen in the open mic. Like, you don't even say a whole lot, but when you start talking, that's it. Like, it's over at that point.
Well, no, that would make for entertainment television. Me and Stephen A. Smith,
it really would.
Molly wouldn't know what the heck to do. But no, seriously, I actually have a lot of respect for Stephen A. Smith too, because he's actually he's one of those guys, like I think he knows what he's talking about, and I think he actually is a fair debater. Like, I think he brings the receipts and everything. He just doesn't. I feel like he does bring facts and receipts to come up with it, and it's not like Skip Bayless where he just comes up with a bunch of Skip Bayless isms and no.
But it's much harder to do what he does than what people think. To get as far as he's gotten, it's hard. Yeah. But what was that? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't hear you.
No, but I think Stephen A. Smith does bring the receipts and the evidence, though, as much of a yeller he is. That's why I give respect to him.
So what do you? Here's an interesting question too. I think, like, especially somebody your age, I'd love to get the answer. Do you still watch SportsCenter or any of those shows anymore? I really find the question. Really think that's interesting. Like, does anybody?
I do actually. I do. I do watch Pat McAfee. I'm gonna like that. I love that show, right? Champion, anyway. But no, I'll still watch SportsCenter. I mean, is it a lot different what they talk about now? Yes, but I mean, when they do sports, I mean, they still do highlights and everything. The only thing I have a problem The only thing I think Sports Center should improve on is, like I said, giving baseball more coverage. That's one of the reasons why baseball's deciding to part ways with ESPN, because they feel like they don't talk about it like they used to.
I've never saw a commissioner do that. What Manfred did with the ESPN deal ended. I've never seen him just clown up a broadcast partner like that. They almost that's unprecedented. I can't ever remember that where they just.
Well, no, but I mean, think about it. Think about it. We're in an era now where, like I said, the WNBA gets, even with that, no, with or without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA still gets talked about more than the MLB, and that's even without Caitlin Clark too, with or without her. And I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, and I don't have a problem with that. You part ways with something you don't talk about anymore, and you tap into a new market. It's business,
The WNBA will not work.
No,
telling you right now.
No, they're actually thinking about next year replacing Sunday Night Baseball with Sunday Night WNBA.
They're going to have to, and it ain't going to work.
They want to do. Did you hear? They want to do Sunday Night WNBA.
I know. Like one more time, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, but think about it. You're still going to get better ratings for the WNBA on Sunday Night Baseball.
Let me tell you why.
Than you would for Sunday Night Baseball.
Let me tell you why it's not going to work. I have 3 daughters that haven't even heard of the WNBA. Those are the ages you would want, right? Teenagers, young people watching women's basketball. They don't care anything about the WNBA. You know who's watching WNBA? Guys old like me, older, who really don't need dunking and all that other stuff in the game. That's why it ain't going to work.
Right, but even though, like I said, it gets more publicity than Major League Baseball does now, though?
I think they're trying to please the NBA. I think that's probably the main reason. And look, I respect Caitlin. I mean, you see Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is, you've got to put 3 people on her or she's going to destroy you. Asia Wilson is a fantastic
She does
player.
things even the guys' game can't do. That's what's so amazing.
Oh, yeah. I'm not dissing that. I'm only talking about the greater interest in it. I don't think it's that many people interested in WA. It's extremely niche. Baseball is a much bigger.
Did you see the video where she was going up against like a bunch of guys players and it went viral, and she was like freaking she was like posting them and destroying them and everything. It was pretty cool to watch.
On the channel, I talked about it when she played Maryland, and this is when she was at Iowa. And every time Maryland didn't put 3 people on her, forget it. She just destroyed you. Period. Even when you did, she dished it off to somebody else wide open.
She's got to be a punching bag. She's got to be the face of the league, but a punching bag at the same time.
She's not going to be a punching anything. She's going to win MVP 4 or 5 times. For sure. There's no question.
Even in the league that quote unquote hates her.
Yes. Everybody hated Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Nobody liked Kobe Bryant. Nobody liked him. You can't.
Yeah, but a lot of people say the hate for her is worse than those two.
I don't know about that. You're talking about maybe the whole black-white thing. I mean, and the whole that's a whole nother thing. But
I didn't want to get into that.
No, but that's there. Yeah. But I'm talking about, like nobody liked Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Nobody liked them, even on his own team. Like they didn't like them. And they didn't care. And that's what you could have with Kate Clark. She's that good. Doesn't matter if anybody likes her or not. All right. Tell the people where they can find you, Jay. Thank you. Jay, well, I do these interviews and I kind of have script. I didn't do one this time. I knew better than that because you're just going to say whatever you're going to say. So you tell the people where they can find you at, man.
Yeah, you guys can find me, yours truly, at Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X. You can find me on the Forkball.com and StadiumRant.com, where I write about all sports. And then you can also find me here on Driving to the Top Productions every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock p.m., where Joe Dalio, my co-host, and I do a New York Subway Conversation baseball chat. I'm the Yankees guy. He's the Mets guy, and we share news with that. And then at 9:00 p.m., you can catch both of us, me and Rav, on Driving to the Top Productions as we do open sports night. And like he says, I sometimes go way off color for that, and I apologize for that. But that's what. But
don't apologize, brother.
But
don't apologize at all.
Like, think of like you can think of open sports. I think of like the show, The Best Damn Sports Show. Period.
Yeah. That's exactly
think about
right.
that. But in podcast form, the way that is now, that's
when you talk, I don't know whether you're going to get like good sports stuff or like a spill, like we've been talking, or you're going to start talking about Gogurt, or you're going to start talking about women, or you're going to start talking about all type of stuff. When I see you with Joe, though, you're very measured. It's none of that.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not like you're not the same in that guy. You kind of like running.
Well, that's a much different format than open mic. I mean, that's a much, look at the term open mic,
Yeah, I hear it.
All right. But anyway, like I said, you know why Kayla Clark is gonna win MVP and everything?
Why? Go ahead, Jamie. Why don't you tell?
She's got protection from she's got protection from my new favorite player too, besides Kayla Clark, Miss Sophie Cunningham.
We knew that name was coming. I knew that was coming.
No, I just think I'm like mesmerized by her. It's like weird.
All right. So there we go. Here we go with the Ravori Sports dating channel here with him talking about Sophie Cunningham.
But anyway.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and thank all of you for watching. Thank you for
listening, people.
Joining us to the Ravori Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe to all of our social media content here. Definitely. Thank you, all of you. Enjoy all the games, and you guys have a great rest of your day.